So hey guys, so today I want to talk about one of the principles of training that I've been practicing a lot on, which is not competing, comparing, or judging when I train. So we're doing a little training right now, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and share this with you while we train. So the idea of this is basically where it's very typical for people to judge themselves, compare themselves to other people, and also have this kind of like this competition. Nothing is wrong with a friendly competition, but a lot of times when we train, we end up getting so caught up with one of these three things, judging ourselves, competing, or comparing, that it takes away from being present in actually training. It takes away also the energy that we have that we need to be spending on actually doing the training movements instead of being in our mind and creating like this unnecessary pressure, unnecessary anxiety, or this lack of, if we're not feeling like we're better than somebody, or this cockiness, this superiority type of feel, if we feel like we are so much better than somebody. A lot of this also leads to like injuries, because then we try to show off, or we try to show, hey, I'm gonna, this person's doing this weight, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do this weight, the same weight, even though the weight might be too heavy, or I'm gonna push in an extra 10 reps because I don't want to look like I'm weak, and then those extra 10 reps actually ends up getting myself injured. So that's something that happens really common. And the thing that I learned about that is when we let go of those expectations of like needing to feel better than somebody else, or needing to constantly judge ourselves, we actually end up creating more positive associations to like our exercises, to our routines, because we don't have this anxiety, like this performance anxiety. So a lot of times, people that compete, they're very familiar with this, to where it's competition day, you've been training for a while, but you don't perform as well on the actual day that matters, because there's this anxiety of this big expectation of how you're gonna be doing it, like your performance, whether or not you're gonna be as good as you want to be, whether or not you're able to repeat what you did in practice. And all of this unnecessary pressure doesn't help. It doesn't help us with our ability, with our performance overall. But if you let it go and you simply just kind of have fun, you will still be able to train hard, because you're actually really focused on the training itself. So when I do that, now some days I feel really strong, so I train a little harder, and I push myself a little more. And then on the days that I'm not feeling it, I'm not as energized, I just take it easy. I don't have this negative self-talk like how I used to have before. Before, it was always about needing to constantly be progressing, and I always look at myself like, am I progressing today? Am I moving forward? Am I getting stronger? Or am I getting weaker? That person, I was stronger than them 2 months ago. Now this person is becoming stronger. Are they stronger than me? Do they look better than me? Am my gains fast enough? All of these questions come up. Distracts the heck out of me. And now there's like this sense of, if I'm gonna show up to train, I need to be on my A game. If not, I don't wanna train around other people. I'd rather be by myself, so this way I don't get caught up in all of this. There's a lot of these things that happen. And a lot of athletes, when they're competing or when they're training, they get into these flow states. And you can't access these flow states if you're too much in your head. That's what takes you out. Flow states are like when you're in this state of consciousness where you're totally present. You don't have like this constant self-awareness, you know, like this awareness of how am I doing, you know, am I doing well? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? All of this question, all of this judgment, all these things, you don't have any of it. You're simply in the moment. You're simply enjoying what it is that you're actually doing. And so by not competing, comparing, or judging ourselves, we are now able to get into flow state. That's not the only thing that you have to do, but it is one of the things that could really easily stop somebody from entering into that state. And so there's so many different changes that I found when I'm starting to train this way. And I've been trained this way now for about a couple years. And I find like if I don't feel like working out, then I just don't do it. And I just go with how I feel, and there is no like negative judgment against how I'm doing things, you know. And that's just such an important thing, because I used to have to get into kind of like this motivated mood to train. But this motivation was because I was like feeling so much of a, what's the right word? A lot of these unnecessary thoughts and this unnecessary pressure, it creates like this uncomfortable emotions. So when I trained, I was training with like a lot of like rage, you know, and I used it as like this fuel to train. And there's a difference between being really focused versus having like almost like anger behind it, you know. And a lot of people think that it's okay to do it in the gym because it's just in the gym. But what happens is when we get used to using that as the fuel, we learn to tap into that more and more. So in other words, we learn to get angry easily because we almost like turn it on. We kind of snap into it. And when we keep depending on that emotion as fuel, we stop the ability to be able to use other emotions that are more uplifting, a little more positive, things using like more inspirational fuel, using more of like a joyful fuel. Handstand push-ups, doing them on the bar. I just started doing it. It's really a challenge for me, you know. I only do usually about an average about 3, and that's it. And you know, I've seen guys just knock them out 10 or 15 reps like nothing. And that's a good example, you know. I can easily go ahead and look at myself as less, like, oh man, these guys are so strong, or I feel so bad about myself because I can't do a lot of repetitions. But you see, all this stuff is just unnecessary. What happens is if I just go and just train at it, I'll just get better at it. You know, there's no reason to get into all that stuff. It just messes up your training. And another principle that I train with is staying really calm and relaxed. And I practice doing that even when I'm doing something like physical training. And one of the reasons why is because the same idea, I can become a lot more focused. My breathing is a lot more calmer. So now I'm only breathing as heavy as I need to. And if I was not as calm, my heart rate would be higher, my breathing would be heavier, and I would burn through more energy. And now I can reserve this extra energy to train instead of just on getting myself worked up. So, you know, the takeaway here is This is something that takes a little while to get used to. You may find that when we first start to practice not judging and competing or comparing, you'll find the thoughts just kind of happen, like this reactiveness. And when that happens, don't worry about it. It's something that takes a little time to slow down those thoughts. What you want to do is just become aware of those thoughts. Imagine those thoughts like a river, right? Just pass them by. You don't want to stand in the middle of it, because then you become those thoughts, you become reactive. Then now you believe that all of what you're thinking is real. When in reality, they're just little thoughts, you know? Like a radio in the background, like a TV playing. You can't switch the channel yet. It's okay, you know? Just let it play. But when you're aware of it, you don't have to entertain it. Even if you realize you're kind of having like this conversation, and it's all just reactive, right? It's not by choice. You're wanting to stop it, but it still happens. Let it be. Just watch it. Do your best to become aware of it. And as you do that, you'll find that you're able to become a little more calm, a little more relaxed. You become a little more aware in your body. And over time, the thoughts slow down because you're not feeding it, you know? So start practicing this principle. Don't compete, compare, and not judge. Oh, one more thing I want to add. A common thing that somebody may have a question on when they think about this is, well, what happened if my job is to compete, or what happened if I'm about to go into this competition? So when this happens, you can use the same principle, but remember that you can use the same principle, but here's the only thing that you would be doing differently, which is, let's say, if you're bodybuilding, you know, or if you're, you know, in any type of sport or any type of competition, you want to be better than somebody else. So you realize what the goal is. I'm trying to reach that goal, trying to get to that point of place, and that becomes what you focus on. You don't focus on having yourself be identified as not being as good or being better. Now you're just comparing against the other person, but you can still use the goal that you're trying to obtain. If you're in bodybuilding and let's say you want to put on 10 more pounds because that's the goal for competition, then you're putting on 10 more pounds. But you don't keep looking at it as that person is training harder than me right now, that person this, that person this. You don't do that. Nor do you look at yourself and go, I was doing better yesterday or last week. You do the best you can. You're analyzing what's happening, but you don't become attached to it. You don't let it constantly affect you emotionally. You only are aware of what's happening, but you don't let it get to your head. You don't let it affect the way you feel. Whether or not you're progressing is what it is, but you never become upset, you never become really bothered by it. Because now what happens is you will always do your best, but your best will fluctuate from moment to moment, from day to day. And the times that you're doing really good, you're happy, you're excited. The times that you're training and your results aren't the best that you want it to be, you're still feeling fine. You're not emotionally hurt, you know, you just feel okay. And so now our emotions and the way we feel are constantly in balance. We go from high to just kind of okay, but we never get down into this really low state because we feel like somebody's better than us or that we're not progressing fast enough in our training. So if you have any more questions on this, please leave me in the comments. I'd love to go ahead and dive more into this. This is such a powerful principle, and when you start to cultivate this in your training, you can start to bring this into everyday life. Because in everyday life, when you're able to not judge, compete, or compare with other people, with their lives, with all that stuff, you're free. You're free to be yourself. It's the best feeling. All right, peace out, guys.